What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. And as usual on Fridays, it is the NASCAR Weekly Preview. This week, going to another one of my favorite tracks. If you remember from the preseason episode I did, or the season preview, going to one of my favorite tracks, one of the most famous tracks in NASCAR, Darlington in South Carolina. What are some storylines going into Darlington? Um, well, Denny Hamlin put on a classic Denny Hamlin performance to win at Martinsville. First win in really like a year, winning at his home track. And there was still a little bit of booze, but maybe Denny Hamlin isn't the most hated driver anymore. It didn't sound like there was as many as there normally is. Some people actually seem excited for him, which was a surprise, I think, to a lot of people. And just a classic Denny performance, taking care of those tires in the long run, and ended up winning by about 5 seconds over the rest of the field, was able to work his way through lap traffic, dominating performance. Denny Hamlin said after those first three races, 2 super speedways and a road course, now we're actually getting into the schedule after 3 specialty tracks. And he was excited, and it's certainly paying off because he is on a hot streak, putting together lots of points, lots of good finishes, and his first win. I wonder if that can continue into Darlington, another track where Denny Hamlin historically has been really, really good. If you look at the course of their careers, not just the next gen history that we normally get into, Denny Hamlin actually has like the best statistics out of all active drivers there. Hasn't been dominant in next gen, but that happens a lot, or has happened a lot next gen. Is Austin Cindric a problem? Speaking of Denny Hamlin, he mentioned it on his Actions Detrimental podcast, and I saw it a little bit on social media. Some people are starting to think Austin Cindric is becoming a problem. Obviously involved in controversy again this week with the wreck, with causing a wreck. But yes, you can view it as a racing incident, and it wasn't as egregious as what he did at COTA. But let's be honest: if you're a NASCAR driver or a NASCAR fan who's watching enough NASCAR, you know what Austin Cindric did was absolutely intentional, and 100%, he purposefully, 100%, punted a car into the corner and caused him to wreck. I don't think there's really a whole lot of ifs, ands, or buts about it, which would be the second time in 8 races he's done so. He had a little bit of history in the Xfinity Series. He did it last year as well. I think you got to start worrying about Austin Cindric. I think Denny Hamlin has a point here, and it's somebody that's been talented on a coming up. He's won an Xfinity Series championship. He's won some races at the Cup level. Average finishing position, maybe not good. And outside of the first couple races of the season, I would say Austin Cindric hasn't been very good. And since he's come up to the Cup Series, he's definitely been the worst of the 3 Penske cars. But he still has some talent. And maybe it's frustration or something else, but I don't really know. But Cindric, man, you got to get it together. I don't think that there's too many people debating this point. Definitely not as many people debating the point number 3 here. What about Ross Chastain? We're going to talk about Cindric. Let's talk about Ross Chastain. And I think this is the more interesting one because this one is more up for debate. Now, Austin Cindric, unquestionably what he's doing is wrong. Chastain ain't going around and intentionally wrecking guys. But he is intentionally making a lot of contact and making some interesting decisions. I do think this messaging is poor coming from Joey Logano because nobody likes Joey Logano, right? Except Joey Logano fans. And honestly, Joey Logano, for a large part of his career, has been the guy that does the same crap he accuses everybody else of doing. And I would say that is still the case, right? Not the right person to be making the message. I will say, however, I agree with the message even if I don't like the messenger. At the end of that race, there was a lot of restarts in that third stage, and a lot of them happened in pretty quick frequency. I understand a guy's going out there to win. I understand on short tracks, contact happens. But there is a difference between contact with 50 laps left. There's a difference between racing hard with 50 laps left and just making boneheaded, selfish decisions that are completely reckless for all the drivers around you. The first of these happens, and I understand that Ross Chastain maybe isn't as fast speed-wise as he has been in the last year or two, especially not as fast as he has been in 2022. In fact, if you look at the analytics, he's out finishing the speed of his car because he's been really, really good on restarts. And he's really hard to pass, but that's been a known thing about Chastain. So I understand he probably feels like he needs to make a lot of leeway on restarts or at least not lose ground, which sometimes means being more aggressive because his car isn't fast. But you cannot put other cars at a threat to be wrecked. I'm kind of more of an old school guy where I think there needs to be a certain respect and decorum when you're racing around the racetrack. And I think a lot of these younger drivers do not have it. First incident I want to talk about, Kyle Larson, one of the late restarts. Listen, you can say somebody's clear, or you can think that you're clear and still not be clear. The whole Larson thing that happened when the two started bumping bumpers and getting into it, running into each other, was started because Ross Chastain forces his way into a position that he quite frankly didn't have enough room to, and he caused a backlog behind him. Right? It was overly aggressive and dumb. And I know that there's going to be Ross Chastain people out there. Ross Chastain fans, you guys are some of the most annoying people in NASCAR. I'm not going to go down that hole right now, but if any other driver did the crap that Ross Chastain did, especially Joey Logano, I was talking about the poor messenger earlier, you guys would be up in arms talking about how ridiculous it is. Okay? And Ross Chastain seems like he had this under control, but I think maybe he's feeling the pressure of a slow start, and maybe he's reverting back to his old tactics. So he has the first one with Kyle Larson. Then he has one with Joey Logano. So two championship-level drivers. Again, Larson I don't think is nearly as hated and nearly as aggressive as Logano is when it comes to taking people out. Logano does take people out. But Ross Chastain then does the same exact thing to Joey Logano that he did to Kyle Larson on the restarts. And I know it's hard to make up ground on that outside, and that when you're on the outside, you threaten yourself getting freight train. But there was guys who were on the outside with him who didn't force their way down and who didn't cause a massive backup when they did get down. So then he hurts Logano, right? They make contact, slow up. It puts Logano in a situation where he's threatening to lose spots, and now Logano's mad. But then a caution comes out, and it resets yet again. And on the third caution, this one is a little bit up for an interpretation, and I know not everybody's going to agree with me, but I don't really care. That third one where Joey Logano ended up getting dumped by Briscoe starts because of another poor decision by Ross Chastain. It was the same decision that he made contact with Larson with and almost wrecked Larson the first time. It's the same contact that he made with Joey Logano the second time. And the third time, it actually ended up in somebody getting hurt. Not like hurt, but like somebody's day getting hurt. Once again, Chase Briscoe, he's kind of clear, but Chase Briscoe has a massive run. And I know you don't want to lose one spot at Martinsville because of track position, but you've got to be more intelligent, especially when you've already done the same thing and pissed two drivers off literally less than 20 laps ago, within the last 20, 30 laps. And he comes down barely clear of Chase Briscoe, with Briscoe having a much larger run, and just cuts him off and essentially causes the two cars behind him to slam on brakes. Briscoe slamming on brakes midway through the corner because Chastain's being an idiot, and it causes him to hit the apron and bounce up and wreck Logano. Is that Briscoe's fault? Maybe Briscoe could have held onto the car, but at the same time, he's not in that situation if Chastain doesn't make his third idiot move in a very short period of time. And then Logano saved his day by getting new tires and driving through the field. I would have loved to see what would have happened if Logano would have made it back to Chastain during that green flag run. But I digress. I think Cindric is a problem that he needs to get figured out, and I think Chastain's starting to go to his old habits that got half of the NASCAR garage pissed off with him in the first place, and I think he needs to tread lightly. Again, I think if it came from most other drivers other than Joey Logano, everybody would be in agreement. Sorry, I'm trying not to take too long in these storylines. This is already the longest storyline segment in the NASCAR series. So I'll hurry up with the last three. It seems like the regulars are back at front, and I think I kind of called this. I talked about this after we got through the first three races, that it's a road course, which is a specialty event, and then two drafting tracks where anybody can be up there. seems like we're back to the regulars at front. Christopher Bell winning. I know Josh Berry isn't a regular, or hasn't been, but he's had some speed this year. And Wood Brothers is not a bad team. I think they have a better driver, and I think that alliance with Penske is paying off. They're essentially that fourth Penske car, right? So and then Larson, Denny, Christopher Bell, like it's the normal, the usuals that you would expect to win are back up front winning races. How about Bubba Wallace? The best start to his career he's ever had. Really, I think this is the year he's really trying to silence a lot of haters, and maybe he felt a little bit more heat this year, a little bit of a hot seat situation. But Bubba's been great to start the year, putting together lots of points, lots of top 10s, a couple top 5s, had another good run at Martinsville. He keeps running like this. It's only a matter of time before he gets another win. Martinsville has been one of his better tracks, but so was Darlington this week. So maybe Bubba runs up front again a lot. Top 10 in point standings. Not too many people would have predicted that to start the year. Props to Bubba Wallace. He's off to an incredible start. And who is going to be the first non-Big Three team to win? Now, I consider the Big Three of NASCAR: Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Team Penske. Those are your three most consistent teams. I was actually, in doing research for this, looking back, when's the last time a driver from one of those three teams hasn't won a Cup championship? It's been a long time, folks. It was pre-COVID. A guy by the name of Martin Truex, and you can argue Truex with that Joe Gibbs association with Toyota. You can even argue that one, and if you make that argument, it would be 2014 with Kevin Harvick in Stewart-Haas Racing, who was kind of a power four in the 2010s. So what I'm saying is these big teams are big for a reason. They dominate the series. Yeah, but somebody is eventually going to win. Maybe it's a Trackhouse. Maybe it's an RFK Racing. 23XI, if you don't count them as one of the big ones, but they've been really, really fast this year, and they're in association with Gibbs, right? And the reason why I'm not counting Josh Berry is because what I said earlier, that Wood Brothers car is essentially a fourth Penske car, so that association, I think kind of makes that part of the Big Three, kind of doesn't, up for debate. But who do you think that first driver is going to be? Or is it going to be somebody I didn't mention? Maybe Front Row has a good day. Who knows? But I want to see which one of these first non-power teams that is a historical power gets into victory lane first. History at Darlington in the next gen. Since the next gen car, there has not been one repeat winner at Darlington. And not only has there not been one repeat winner at Darlington, there has been only one team that has won multiple races at Darlington, and that's Hendrick Motorsports in the 2023 season. Meaning a lot of different drivers, a lot of different teams have won here. The only brand not to win here, the only manufacturer, despite all of that parity, not to win, believe it or not, it's Toyota, despite having a lot of good runs and a lot of good drivers. In fact, Toyota, out of the top 7 best average finishes you see here, Toyota has 4 of the top 7 highest average finishes and still doesn't have a win in Darlington. This could be the year that changes. But you can see Joey Logano won on their way to a championship. Eric Jones shocked everybody in the playoffs, picking up a win. Eric Jones, potential dark horse candidate. He loves this racetrack. William Byron and Kyle Larson, well, that makes sense that they win. Brad Keselowski, very good his whole career here. He's been good with Next Gen. He won last year's spring race after that controversial finish between Reddick and Buescher, and him winning it from third place after they got into each other. And then Chase Briscoe was Stewart-Haas Racing's last victory, the most recent race in September, to get into the playoffs, and a special moment for him and his team. Do we see one of those people repeat for the first time at Darlington? Certainly possible. Best average finish I was just alluding to. Notice nobody has an average finish in the top 10. In the next gen, this racetrack has hurt. This track has been crazy with parity. In fact, no greater example than last year, there was only one car who was top 5 in both races. It was Chase Briscoe, and he was only one of 2 drivers to be in the top 10 both races, the other one being Denny Hamlin. Meaning, last year, out of 20 possible top 10s, 16 different drivers grabbed those 20 spots. So Darlington has been a spot where some of these guys you don't expect it have had good days. But the ones who have consistently done the best in next gen, first, William Byron, 10.3, not even averaging a top 10, right outside. Joey Logano and Christopher Bell in second, tied with a 10.7 average finish. Brad Keselowski behind him with an 11th place finish. And the reason why I did 7 guys instead of 5 is because there is a 3-way tie for 7th at 11.8 with the 23XI Racing crew, owner Denny Hamlin and Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick, all with 11.8 average finish. Most top 5s. This is going to be an interesting stat, the top 5s and the top 10s. Most top 5s in next gen at Darlington, Tyler Reddick has 3, including 2 second place finishes. 9 people are tied for second place with 2 top 5 finishes. They are Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, Chase Briscoe, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, and William Byron. And then the most top 10s, 4 are tied in first at 4 out of the 6 races being in the top 10. Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, William Byron, Brad Keselowski, and 7 people are tied at 5 in 5th place with 3 top 10 finishes. Michael McDowell and Justin Haley, big surprises to me. I don't know if they are to you guys. Chris Buescher, Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, and Chase Elliott. As you can see, this could be a wild one that's a little bit hard to predict. Just based off of these statistics, and you never know who might find themselves having a good day. My favorites to win, if we're on the teams, what a shock. Hendrick, Penske, and Joe Gibbs are the 3 teams I give the best chance to win, with Hendrick Motorsports, as they are for pretty much every track in NASCAR, having the best chance to win. And they're always a team that is the biggest threat to have all of their drivers finish in the top 10. 23XI in 4th. And overtaking Trackhouse Racing, RFK Racing, Buescher can get around here. Brad Keselowski has multiple wins here. He can get around this track. And Ryan Preece has been pretty good on small tracks. So I like RFK to have a good day over the rest of the teams. But those top 4 are usually entrenched in the top 4. It just matters what order they're going to be in. Again, I think despite the parity, there's usually enough good drivers that have good days between Hendrick, Penske, JGR, and 23XI, where your winner's probably coming from one of those top 4 teams. Driver rankings. Tyler Reddick, he's been the bridesmaid multiple times. He has 3 top 3 finishes, not just 3 top 5 finishes. He does well at these type of racetracks. He loves running that high line. Him and Larson do it better than everybody, and you need to at Darlington to be successful. Tyler Reddick could use a win to get some momentum. I like Tyler Reddick to win this week. Definitely going to be a top contender. Joey Logano was one here before. He's been fast here. 1-2 poles in the next gen here. Joey Logano always has speed at Darlington. He's a veteran driver. Veteran drivers usually perform better than anybody else at Darlington. It's such a tough track. I like Joey Logano. Kyle Larson, won here before, usually runs fast here, dominated the fall race, the most recent race here, before finishing 4th. Larson, he's a threat at every track, especially at Darlington, where you have to rip the high line. Denny Hamlin, again, maybe not as much success as he's used to in next gen. He's still a top 5 driver here in the next gen car. He's historically throughout his career has better career numbers than everybody else that's active here. He loves this racetrack. He's coming off a win. Denny is a real threat to win. William Byron has won here. He's almost won a second time, but that famous Joey Logano putting him into the wall to win in 2022 incident. Could have 2 wins here. William Byron also with Hendrick Motorsports. Byron's always a threat to win. Those top 5 are usually pretty good bets on any track. Brad Keselowski has 2 career wins here, including 1 last year in the next-gen car. He's always fast, has a good average finishing position. Ford has been fast at Darlington, winning 4 races here in the last 6. Brad Keselowski could be fast. Chase Briscoe, I think if he was still a Ford, I have him even higher because Ford has won here and has been fast here. Granted, Toyota's been fast here, and they're going to win one eventually. But I think there's a little bit too much uncertainty. His crew chief has won here in 2021 with Martin Truex, so they both have wins, just not with each other. If they can coalesce here, maybe Chase Briscoe can capture some of that fall magic. Otherwise, He has back-to-back top 10 finishes. He's starting to write his season or get his season on the right track. He definitely going to, I feel confident about him being top 10. Can he get back to victory lane? Christopher Bell, another former winner here, hasn't had the consistent speed as some of the guys in front of him, but Christopher Bell, any weekend, he's very versatile in the type of driver he is. He's pretty good running high lines as an old dirt track guy too. Watch out for Christopher Bell. He already has 3 race wins this year. Bubba Wallace, not only has he put up good numbers at this track in his career, one of the better tracks he has, but 23XI has been fast here. Toyota's been fast here despite not winning in the next gen. And Bubba Wallace is super hot. He's coming off of back-to-back great finishes. He's top 10 in points, best start to his career. Maybe they're going to be feeling it. You keep running that up front, you're going to win one eventually. They've been running up front. Maybe this is the week. And then Ross Chastain has done well here, especially in his time with Trackhouse. I expect to see Ross Chastain being competitive, especially after a good run last week at a short track. Not that Darlington is a short track or short track like, but I expect to see Ross Chastain be competitive here. And then quickly, driver power rankings, having some shakeups. Kyle Larson, I still have him number 1. He's been the most consistent the last couple weeks. Has a win 2 weeks ago. Good spot in points. Christopher Bell, second fastest car last week, and he finished second. Also still has 3 race wins, also in a great spot in points. Those two, no surprise, they're 1-2. And then Denny Hamlin making a jump up to 3rd with a race win. I think Denny Hamlin's season, after that slow start on some weird tracks, some chaos tracks, I think Denny Hamlin's in his bread and butter. He's in his rhythm. And I would be scared if I'm the rest of the field about Denny Hamlin going on a hot streak. William Byron keeps falling a little bit after the Daytona 500 win. He also hasn't been fast, like too fast the last 2 weeks. Had a really rough week this week. Still first in points, though. Tells you how good he's doing in getting stage points. But not finishing consistent enough to be in the top 3 anymore. Chase Elliott, 3rd in points right now. Having a pretty darn good start to the season. Last week you thought for the first half maybe he's a real competitor, and he was one of the 3 or 4 fastest cars last week. Chase Elliott hasn't had great recent history at Darlington, but before the next gen car, in the previous gen car, he was pretty good at Darlington. I think he's going to keep figuring out, and I think that he's performing better. One of the hotter guys in NASCAR right now. Chase Elliott, I believe this is the first appearance I'm giving him in the top 5. Bowman, after a rough week, I have falling all the way down to 6. Had a good first stage and then had a bad day after that. And it's just really competitive at the top, where one bad week can move you down. Just ask Tyler Reddick. I had him in the top 5 most of the season. Recovered a little bit this week with a decent finish despite some controversy, giving him 7th place in the power rankings. Bubba Wallace, I've talked about him plenty already this episode about how hot Bubba Wallace has been. I don't think this week's going to be any different. Great finish last week, getting a lot of stage points, getting the top 10 finishes. Maybe Bubba Wallace is finally putting it all together. He's 8th in the power rankings. An incredible drive from Joey Logano to get a top 10 finish. Got some stage points. Maybe, this is his best finish of the year. Maybe it sparks Joey Logano heading into a track he feels really comfortable at. He is the defending champ. He still has yet to finish a race in a better position than he started, but this week could be the week. Granted, I'll say that, and then he'll go out there and qualify first and finish second, and technically that would be finishing worse than you start, right? Chase Briscoe, back-to-back week getting stage points, back-to-back weeks in the top 10. Feels like after some early season struggles and narrowly avoiding a catastrophic penalty, Chase Briscoe's in the 19 team have finally kind of evened out, and they're starting to figure each other out. Chase Briscoe back into the top 10 of the power rankings. Ryan Blaney has had a lot of speed. The points and the finishes don't necessarily show that. He did recover this week okay after maybe not being up front all race. Like coming into the race, his average finish at Martinsville was 3rd. That's insane. It was best in NASCAR. He's been a fixture at the front of these Martinsville races. Wasn't awful, still wasn't his normal self. Finally got a decent finish. His engine didn't blow up, which is progress because it's done so twice this year. I still think Blaney has speed. His finishes just need to match the speed he has, and he'll end up in victory lane at least once, and he'll end up just fine on points. Chris Buescher, kind of not a lot of people are talking about him, but Buescher's putting together good finishes. He's being consistently in the top 15, has stage points in some of these races, in the top 10 a lot. He's in a great position on points as it stands right now. Now you get a couple more guys winning races behind you, then you're going to start to worry. But for now, he's A-okay. Chris Buescher just quietly putting together good finishes. And this is a track where RFK was super fast last spring. I expect the same to happen this spring. Ross Chastain, what an up and down season, has some pretty bad finishes due to DNFs. Had an awful day at Miami, rebounded this week at Martinsville. Good points day. You know, for Ross Chastain and the Trackhouse team, I think it's about finding consistency. If they find consistency, they'll be okay, and they'll be in the playoffs right where they expect to be. Ryan Preece, what about Ryan Preece, man? Something about these SHR guys, the guys who raced for SHR last year, finding their way, kind of magical. Ryan Preece putting together lots of good finishes. Can he sustain it on non-short tracks? He's a historical short track guy, and he's proving it. He's good on points. He's right near the playoff cut line. You know, if he keeps it up, maybe he can find his way into his first career playoffs. Doesn't have any top 10s in Darlington and 10 career starts, however. Can he keep the momentum? Josh Berry, good first stage. Not so great of a race after that. Not entirely his fault with some of the mechanical issues. After that Vegas win that bumped him into the top 10, he's shown speed, but not finishing well, so he's slowly starting to trickle down. But I do think this top 15 is quite faster than 16 through 20, and I trust them on a week-to-week basis as they're performing right now. There's kind of multiple tiers, and like I said, Josh Berry rounding up what I would consider the second tier. I kind of consider the top 7, the championship contenders as it sit, the best, most consistent drivers this season. I have 8 through 15 is that second tier of playoff favorites, but can they, and it's just a question of can they get hot to make a championship run? And then the last group I'm getting to, 16 to 20, the fringe playoff guys, the playoff hopefuls who are either barely in or barely out, looking to get into the playoffs. And the first one of those guys is Michael McDowell. Good run last week. McDowell still, not getting a whole bunch of top 10s, not getting a whole bunch of stage points, but he's still having a great year finishing races in the top 15, in the top 20, which he rarely has done. I still believe he has the best average finish so far this season, better than any other season in his career. Did a good job to keep it going at Martinsville last week. Maybe Michael McDowell in Inspire Motorsports are finding some speed. Kyle Busch, he just needs to get something. He's been up and down, and it's been more down than up. He had an okay day. It's not up to Kyle Busch standards, but they did finish second in Darlington at the fall race last year and were the fastest car by the end of that race. Kyle Busch needs something to start going right. And then these last 3 guys, John Hunter Nemechek, AJ Allmendinger, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., none of them had great days at Martinsville. John Hunter Nemechek did have a good first stage, but all 3 of these guys are just barely on the outside looking in playoffs. All 3 of them have had a fantastic start to the year. Can they keep the momentum going at Darlington? Because there's some guys I have right outside the top 20 that are dying to get in that I think, depending on the results this week, could replace one of those 3, if not all 3 of them. But all of those guys off to better starts than expected, but all 3 have historically struggled at Darlington. Thank you, everybody, for coming in and listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for taking time out of your days, your weeks, and your lives to listen. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Give me feedback in the comments below. Let me know your hot takes. Let me know who you think is going to win Darlington. Whatever you want to say NASCAR related or something that I talk about, let me know your thoughts on the Ross Chastain and Austin Cindric controversy. Put it in the comments. Once again, thank you, everybody. Stay safe. Have a good sports weekend. Final Fours here, and peace.